Have you ever wondered about the people you see every day but never really notice? The ones who work in the shadows, keeping our world running smoothly? This is a story about one such person, a janitor named Samuel, and a CO who learned a life-changing lesson far too late. It's a story about a letter that was never read, and a final act of dedication that echoed long after the person was gone. Our story begins in a gleaming skyscraper, the headquarters of a global tech giant. On the top floor, in a sprawling office with a panoramic view of the city, sat Mr. Harrison, the CEO. He was a man who measured his life in stock prices and quarterly reports. People were numbers on a spreadsheet, assets to be managed. He was sharp, driven, and respected, but not necessarily liked. His world was one of high-stakes deals and boardroom battles, far removed from the hum of the vacuum cleaner in the hallway. Every night, long after the last executive had gone home, Samuel the janitor would begin his shift. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and hands worn from years of hard work. For 30 years, Samuel had cleaned this building. He'd seen CEOs come and go, seen the company grow from a small startup to a corporate behemoth. He took immense pride in his work. He didn't just clean, he cared for the building. He knew the creak of every floorboard and the history of every coffee stain he de-scrubbed away. Samuel had a son, Daniel, who was bright and full of potential, but life had thrown them a curveball. Daniel had a rare medical condition, and the treatments were astronomically expensive. Samuel worked double shifts, picked up extra hours, anything he could to make ends meet and give his son a fighting chance. He watched Mr. Harrison from afar, seeing the wealth and power he commanded. He didn't feel envy, but a desperate, flickering hope. He believed that if a man with so much could just see his struggle, he might be moved to help. So Samuel wrote a letter. He poured his heart onto a single sheet of paper, explaining his situation, his love for his son, and his 30 years of loyal service to the company. He wasn't asking for a handout, but for a chance, an opportunity, perhaps a small loan or an advance. With a trembling hand, he placed the letter neatly on Mr. Harrison's pristine desk, right next to his gold-plated pen holder, hoping it would be the first thing the CEO saw in the morning. But Mr. Harrison didn't see it, not in the way Samuel hoped. The next morning, he strode into his office, his mind already on a billion-dollar merger. He saw the envelope, but assumed it was just another internal memo, another piece of paper in a day filled with them. Without a second thought, he swept it into a pile of documents destined for his assistant. "File this," he'd said, and that was that. The letter, Samuel's desperate plea, was filed away, unread. In a cabinet labeled miscellaneous, days turned into weeks and weeks into months. No response came. Samuel's hope began to fade, replaced by a quiet resignation. Daniel's condition worsened. The medical bills piled up, becoming an insurmountable mountain of debt. Samuel had to make a heartbreaking decision. He sold his small house, the only home Daniel had ever known, to pay for one more round of treatment. It wasn't enough. With his savings gone and his spirit crushed, he knew he couldn't afford to keep working. He had to retire, to spend what little time he had left with his son. His last day of work arrived. It was a heavy, somber day. He went through his usual routine, but every action felt final. He polished the lobby floors one last time, cleaned the employee lounge, and emptied the trash cans, his heart a leaden weight in his chest. His colleagues, the other night shift workers, gave him a small, sad farewell party with a store-bought cake. They shared stories and wished him well, but Samuel's mind was elsewhere. It was on the top floor. Now let's pause here. Years have passed since that night. Mr. Harrison is older, still the CEO, but the world has changed, and so has he. A recent health scare had forced him to reevaluate his life. He started thinking about his legacy, about the people he'd impacted. It was during this period of introspection that he began a company-wide initiative to connect with long-serving employees, past and present. He wanted to hear their stories. And that's how he found himself sitting opposite Daniel, Samuel's son. Daniel was a grown man now, with the same kind eyes as his father. He was a software engineer working for a rival company. Mr. Harrison had invited him to his office, wanting to hear about his father's 30 years of service. He offered his condolences, mentioning he'd heard Samuel had passed away a few years after retiring. "Thank you," Daniel said, his voice steady. He was a good man. He was proud of his work here. Mr. Harrison nodded, offering a practiced, corporate smile. We were proud to have him. I'm sorry we lost touch after he retired. Life gets so busy, you know. Daniel just looked at him, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. The conversation was polite, formal. They spoke of Samuel's work ethic, his dedication. But as the meeting was about to end, Mr. Harrison felt a nagging sense that something was left unsaid. He leaned forward. Daniel, is there anything else? Your father, was he happy when he left? Daniel hesitated for a long moment, then he looked Mr. Harrison straight in the eye. He was heartbroken, he said softly. The corporate facade fell away. He wrote you a letter, you know, he put it on your desk. He needed help, I was sick, and he was trying to save me, he thought. He hoped he might help? Mr. Harrison's mind went blank. A letter? He searched his memory, a cold dread creeping into his stomach. He remembered nothing. A letter? He repeated, his voice barely a whisper. I don't recall any letter. Daniel's expression didn't change. I know, he waited for a reply that never came. He thought you'd just ignored him. That his 30 years of service meant nothing to you. The weight of those words hit Mr. Harrison like a physical blow. He thought of the countless memos, the endless paperwork. How could he have missed something so important? Tell me about his last night, Mr. Harrison said, his voice hoarse. Please? And this is where our story comes full circle. Daniel's voice softened, losing its edge, replaced by a deep, lingering sadness. He didn't want to go home that night. He stayed late. Much later than usual. Why? The CEO asked quietly, leaning forward, his world shrinking to the space between him and this man. Daniel swallowed the memory. He said he wanted to clean your office one last time. He said, before he left, he told my mom on the phone, maybe one day he'll understand. After Daniel left, Mr. Harrison sat motionless in his chair for a long, long time. Find a file cabinet from years ago, labeled miscellaneous. I'm looking for a letter. From an employee named Samuel. Hours later, the assistant returned with a dusty, yellowed envelope. Mr. Harrison took it with a trembling hand. Every word was a dagger to his heart. It wasn't just a letter. It was a testament to a life he had completely overlooked. That day, Mr. Harrison changed. The story of Samuel's last night became his secret burden and his guiding star. He established a foundation in Samuel's name, an emergency fund for employees facing personal crises, ensuring no one's plea would ever go unheard again. He started walking the halls at night, learning the names of the cleaning crew, asking about their families, seeing them not as staff, but as people. The story of the janitor's last night serves as a powerful reminder for all of us. It reminds us that behind every uniform, every job title, is a human being with a story, with hopes and with struggles. It teaches us that true wealth isn't measured in stock prices, but in the connections we make and the compassion we show. Let's try to see the Samuels in our own lives. A simple act of recognition, of kindness, can make all the difference. It can change a life, or, in its absence, it can leave a silence that echoes for years.